Let's talk custom boxes for your subscription box business. So you want to start a subscription box, but you just don't know how to get custom boxes, where to get custom boxes. And it's honestly the number one question I get when people are starting out with their subscription box business. So in this video, I'm going to answer all kind of the questions I get. And mainly I'm going to talk about whether you should go with a local supplier or how can you get boxes from overseas. My name is Michelle and I run a subscription box business down in Australia called Aussie Biz Chick, a subscription box for female entrepreneurs. We're going to look at a few different things you need to pay attention to. 1 is time frame, 2 is the minimum order quantity, 3 is cost, and 4 is, which is everybody's favorite, where the heck do I find these suppliers? So I am going to help you out with all of that. If you are an aspiring subscription box entrepreneur, be sure to subscribe because we're going to be coming out with the more helpful videos for you, and make sure to like this video too so you can come back to it later if you need to, a bit of a refresh. Option 1, local supplier. Now, when I first started, I actually went with a local supplier, aka a supplier in your country of origin. We were in the height of the pandemic, and working with a local supplier, the time frame of getting multiple samples to then making a bulk order was a really safe bet for us. The turnaround was 2 weeks for both getting a sample and a bulk order, so very quick. Keep in mind, if you do a box size they don't already have, then that's going to add a little bit more time to your order on your first purchase because they have to make the mold. This time frame is definitely a major pro if you want or need your boxes ASAP. I actually have my local supplier on hand just in case anything gets delayed from overseas. Let's talk minimum order quantity, aka the minimum amount you will need to purchase with this supplier. Now, when it comes to a local supplier, there is really no outrageous minimum order quantity compared to an overseas supplier. I actually ordered 50 boxes in our first month, and that was a good idea because we actually ended up making the box smaller and tweaking a few things. If I had ordered 500, I would have been stuck with that one for quite a while and couldn't make the necessary changes I wanted to. So with a local supplier, there's no crazy minimum order quantity, which is something to consider when you're thinking about cash flow, but I'll get to that when we talk about cost. Now, things you need to know is all figures will be quoted in AUD here. Depending on the box size, this can affect the price. So to give context, our box is just a little smaller than A4 size. Now, the first thing I want to point out when you're looking at prices, you want to ensure you know if they're factoring in shipping or if it's excluded from that per box price. Every supplier is different, so you just want to double check so you don't get a bit of a shock at checkout if there is a shipping price. The other thing to note is if you do go with a custom size, this means they have to create your custom mold. So you will initially have to pay for that to be done. It's a one-off payment, and with the local supplier, that was 1,500 AUD. Again, that's a one-off cost to have your custom mold done. Now, not all suppliers are going to be able to offer this custom sizing, so just keep that in mind. About the cost. So hands down, the cost from a local supplier is more expensive. When I first did an order, it was $7 per box for the 50 units. That includes the shipping. And then when I ordered 100 plus units, it ended up being $4 per box, including shipping. And then 250 plus units ended up being $3.50 per box, including shipping. And as you order more, the price does go down. And so you might be thinking off the bat, wow, is that a really expensive box cost? Yes, definitely compared to an overseas supplier, but I just want to let you know that even though, yes, you're paying more per box, let's do for an example, you get 100 units at $4, that's $400 you have to pay, versus an overseas supplier where you have a larger minimum order quantity. Yes, it's cheaper per box, but it actually ends up being an upfront cost of $1,200. That's an extra upfront cost of $800. And there's one thing you have to know about business is that you always need to be on top of your cash flow. Cash flow fuels the business. So just know what you're capable of spending in the beginning stages of your business, and if going a local supplier is the best route for you at this moment in time, then you absolutely can do that. I recommend a few suppliers you can check out here. The first one is Vistaprint. Now, not only do Vistaprint do mailer boxes, but they do a lot of other things: stickers, flyers, marketing materials, and everything in between. The only problem with Vistaprint in terms of the mailer boxes is there's very limited sizing. If you have a really specific custom size box, Vistaprint at this moment in time isn't going to be able to do that for you. And I do think, looking at the prices, it is quite reasonably priced compared to other local suppliers. The other one you can check out is Ink Packaging. So these were the guys I went with when I first started, and I can vouch for them. They're very good quality. There's a bunch of different sizes, but again, with this one, I went with a custom size. I actually had my own custom mold done with Ink Packaging. I will say that their pricing is a little bit more on the steeper side. I think their boxes are of really great quality and a quick turnaround time and super easy to order. The other thing you can do, of course, is Google custom packaging boxes, your city, state, and see what comes up. Just think about creating relationships with suppliers for the long term, and you might want to go with somebody a little more closer to home. But those are some suppliers you can check out: Ink and Vistaprint. Now let's talk working with an overseas supplier. So that is who I work with now. I've gone from local supplier, and I was with a local supplier for about a year, I'd say, until now I've moved over to an overseas supplier that I have a really good relationship with. So let's go back to kind of the points I want you to look at when it comes to working with your box supplier. Let's start off with time frame. So working with an overseas supplier takes longer purely because of the time it takes to get your boxes over here. Remember, I am in Australia. Firstly, you want to get a sample. This is really important. Getting a sample from China can take up to a month or even longer sometimes, depending on how long it takes them to create your custom mold and sample. Then when you do your bulk order, let's say it's a minimum of 1,000 boxes, it can take up to another 6 to 8 weeks by sea freight. If you choose to do the air freight option, that usually takes 2 to 3 weeks, but it's very expensive, and I just don't think it is cost effective. If you're going to go with an overseas supplier, just make sure you are very organized and you even have a backup if anything goes wrong. So for example, due to unforeseen circumstances, sometime we actually ended up doing an ad hoc order with our local supplier when we found out our overseas shipment wasn't going to arrive in time for our next lot of boxes. So when you're buying bulk from overseas, different suppliers have different minimum order quantities. The supplier I'm with, their minimum is 2,000 boxes. The lowest I've seen is 500. If you go any lower than that, it doesn't really make sense when you think about the shipping cost on top of that. Again, I'll talk about that next. To shop around and see what's best for you. Again, get that sample. Make sure you build that relationship with that overseas supplier. But now let's talk about the actual cost. Now, like a local supplier, when it comes to cost, the more boxes you get, the cheaper per box. Again, keep in mind, if you're going with custom sizing, you'll need to pay for the mold. From overseas, that is around 200 to 400 AUD. It's a one-off expense. Now, for the boxes itself, this can get a bit tricky. So they will quote you per box, but don't get too excited because you need to work out the shipping. So let me just give you the rundown. So we ordered 6,000 boxes, which equated to 90 cents per box. They quoted us $7,000 for sea freight. Through our logistic broker, we got that down to $2,000. You might want to consider organizing shipping yourself by finding a good logistics partner. So this ended up being $1.20 per box for 6,000 units. So that includes the shipping. So all up, $1.20 per box. Where to find overseas suppliers? The best place to find an overseas manufacturer is Alibaba. Now, I found my current manufacturer on Alibaba through research. I've worked with them for multiple different items. We have a great relationship. For obvious reasons, I'm not going to give away my current overseas supplier, but it's very easy to go on Alibaba and find one for you. This is the checklist you need to use in order to find a reputable supplier on Alibaba. They have trade assurance, they are a certified supplier, supplier, they have a good amount of reviews, they have been around long. So I like to work with a supplier who've been around for a minimum of 2 years. Do they have a good on-time completion rate? They offer flexible payment terms. Do they have photos of their operations, a business license, and contact information? Do they have a refund and dispute policy? This is important. And can they send you a sample? But definitely just shop around, contact a few different ones, and see how the communication goes. Is it easy to work with them? Are they very good at communicating to you? And do they listen to what you're trying to say and what you're after in terms of your custom boxes? So that was quite a lot to take in, but I'm just going to quickly go over the points I said in this video. Let's quickly do that now. So in terms of time frame, you're looking at a quicker time frame with a local supplier option, i.e. you're looking around a turnaround time of 2 weeks versus an overseas supplier. It can take up to, 6 to 8 weeks to get your bulk order in. The minimum order quantity for a local supplier can be as little as 10 boxes, but for an overseas supplier, you're looking at around a 500 to 1,000 minimum order quantity that you will need. Go cost. Again, cost in all AUD. If you're going with a local supplier, you're looking at a one-off cost for a mold of about $1,500, and then the cost per box is a lot more expensive than the overseas supplier. You're looking at a mold of around $200 to $400. They're a lot cheaper per box, but their shipping is a lot more expensive versus the local supplier. And then where to find local suppliers? Well, you can just go on Google, or you can check out Vistaprint or Ink Packaging. If you want to find a supplier from overseas, definitely Alibaba. Make sure to look at the dot points I said to find a reputable Alibaba supplier. There you have it. I hope you found this video helpful. Be sure to like and subscribe. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them in the video down below. And I wish you all the best in creating your very own subscription box.